everyone, and welcome back to Music is the Source. I, of course, am John Chorba, and this is episode number 4, and I gotta tell you again, I am having a whole hell of a lot of fun. What's interesting is I still haven't uploaded any of these episodes yet. So right now, I'm legit talking to no one, okay? And, because sometimes when I was thinking about starting this podcast, one of the obvious things that you worry about is anybody going to listen to this, right? Is anybody going to care? Like, what am I doing here? And man, already, like 4 episodes in, like I can't wait to do the next one. So, maybe it's because it's a new thing and, you get sucked into new things and you just want to do them all the time. But regardless, like I look forward to, I was actually supposed to do this one yesterday. Today's Tuesday, February something, 5th. Yeah, I was supposed to do this yesterday. I had a plan to do yesterday, but I got caught off guard with these stupid problems with my website. And long story short, something I thought was going to take 5 minutes ended up taking me 4.5 hours. So that's a day in my life. And luckily, my wife was home yesterday, and she got to hear me, curse and throw things and be all rageaholic over here. So, but so I'm loving doing this. I'm having fun. I couldn't wait to talk about, the weekend was one of the first things I wanted to talk about here. On my little outline, got my outline, which you can't see, but I can. And if you're just listening to this, then you can't see shit. So, you got that going for you. Anyway, so I had a good weekend, really good weekend. My wife suggested on Saturday, because our baby, our first daughter, is going to be here. Our first baby ever, which happens to be a daughter, is going to be here in a few weeks. It's pretty much any day now at this point. And, so my wife suggested that we take Saturday and go to lunch and, spend some time, just me and her, because in a few weeks, we're not going to get to do that a whole hell of a lot. So it was nice. We went and had a nice little lunch. 2 different places, which, my wife's crazy and she likes to split things up. So we went to one place for appetizers and went to another place for a dessert, and it was delicious and it was nice. So, it's always important, I think, to take time and, no matter how long you're married, and especially if you have kids or if you're about to have kids, we're realistic. We know life's going to change. We know we're going to be extremely busy and we're not going to have a lot of time to do things that we used to do. So, take advantage of it now, while you can. Another big thing that was over the weekend was 21st birthday of my favorite Pearl Jam album, Yield. That album was very, very instrumental in me wanting to do music long term in terms of writing songs and being in bands and just. I don't know what it is about that album, because, I could objectively say it's not Pearl Jam's best album. I would leave that to either Tenor or Verses. I lean towards Verses in terms of what I think their best, their best output is, them at their best. That's what I think. I think, those 2 albums are shining examples of very, Pearl Jam at a very high level. But Yield, I don't know. Maybe it was when it came out. I discovered it when I was a teenager. Pearl Jam was kind of the first band I ever got really obsessed with. And it's been very super important to me ever since. I love it. That album's been there for me, through good times and through bad. And it's fired me up. It's calmed me down. It's made me want to write stuff. And it's super, super important to me. And Pearl Jam is super important to me. And when my wife Gab had a dream many years ago that we were going to have a daughter, and we were going to name her Parker, but call her PJ. And man, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's awesome. It just felt right. It just felt like that sounds like something that we would do. That sounds perfect. So let's do that. And so our PJ is coming shortly, and it was nice. Every February 3rd, that was the anniversary of the release of Yield. I remember skipping school when it came out to go pick the album up, and I remember just listening to it all day long and going online to, I think it was giventowhale.com was the Pearl Jam tablature site back in the mid-90s. It was the only website in the 90s that had accurate Pearl Jam tablature. And I remember going there and just hitting refresh over and over again, seeing if they released any new tabs from Yield. And I just listened to it nonstop. And it was and it was like everybody, all my friends listened to it too. It was just a, very important album for me. And so to listen to that, and my wife got this little onesie, this little Pearl Jam onesie that has PJ on it, and to just be looking at that while I'm listening to Yield was just like, man, I can't wait to show her this song. I can't wait to show her, Given to Fly and play Wishlist for her, It's awesome. It's just awesome. I'm so excited. Like I'm getting all giddy here. Anytime I talk about my kid, I start getting really, really giddy. And so that was the good stuff that happened. Bad stuff is the Patriots won the fucking Super Bowl. I'm a big Patriots hater. I can't stand the Patriots. And that's, this is the perfect time of the year for all my friends that are Patriots fans to just poke at me and rub it in that once again, they're winners. The Steelers are losers. And my argument over which dynasty is the greatest is now failing to the New England Patriots. I am sad to admit that that's the case. But I did make some money betting on the Super Bowl, so that was great. I did pretty well. So yeah. I just wish I wish they didn't win. God damn it! It's Brady, really. Belichick, I don't mind. It's Brady. It's just Tom Brady. He's just such a douchebag, and like he's really not. I know that he's a big pit bull advocate, which makes him awesome in my eyes. And by all accounts, like he's a very generous person, and obviously very, very good at what he does. But he's just got a face you just want to smack. Like there's just no other way around it. He's just a piece of shit. That's the only way I can say it. So I'm a hater. There's no other way to say it. I hate the Patriots. I'm not ashamed to admit that. So, all right, we're on episode 4, and I really felt like I haven't talked about music enough. I called the goddamn podcast "Music is the Source," and I feel like I haven't talked about music and learning guitar and learning teaching by now. So I'm kind of structuring this podcast as I just do whatever the hell I want whenever I want to do it, because that makes it fun for me. But I also feel like if I stray too far from music, it's getting too far away from why I wanted to do this in the first place. So today is my general overall approach to learning guitar or any musical instrument, but I don't play many instruments. Guitar is what I'm most proficient at. It's what I do the best. So I want to kind of go over, some guidelines, if you will, or just my overall like macro perspective of learning the guitar and kind of how I teach and what are some of the things I believe in, what are some of the things that I think all guitar players should work on, regardless of what your skill level is, to get the most out of playing the instrument and enjoying the whole process. So one, I always teach from the perspective. So like I've been teaching now for almost 10 years. And is it 10 years? I don't know. I always forget when I started. 2008, 2009 is when I started teaching. I always forget. But anyway, I always teach from the perspective of if I could go back in time and grab my like 13-year-old version of myself who's struggling with, chords and stuff, or I didn't even know there were chords at the time, but, struggling with just playing the damn thing. Knowing everything that I know now, what would I do differently? Like, because again, I'm mostly a self-study product. I've only taken, I've taken very few private lessons, like where I went to a place and, studied face-to-face with somebody one-on-one. I haven't done a whole lot of that. Most of my teachers have been, people that have created either products or wrote articles or, posted videos or whatever. Again, most of my beginner learning happened pre-internet, so it's really Guitar World and Wolf Marshall that I owe the ability to play guitar to, and in terms of learning what I needed to learn. So when I teach somebody, or when I'm creating, a new course or something like that, and even now with like looking at my own playing and just knowing what I know about how to learn things, I think about like, okay, if I could go back and look at, what I did, how could I have done that better? What were the things that I wasn't thinking about? And what kind of obstacles kind of get in the way, and how to avoid them or how to deal with them, right? So that's kind of my overall perspective. That's the perspective that I teach from. And so my first advice to anybody out there that's especially new at learning guitar or thinking about learning guitar, right? So talking to the beginners here, but intermediate players, you could definitely be in this little discussion I'm about to have. And that is, there's no one way to learn how to play the guitar. There's no one way. There's no best way. There's no like secret that anybody's holding back. And there's no teacher that there's no group of teachers that are like, oh, here's the secret to learning guitar. Let's keep this under lock and key. And then only the chosen few can release the secret to the masses, and we're all going to laugh maniacally because we're going to collect all the money. No. So first and foremost, if you encounter that at all in marketing, it makes sense from a sales perspective to make it sound like there's some sort of secret, or that this way is the best way, or that way, my way is the best way, whatever it is. Just know that it's not true. There's no one way. There's no best way that universally fits every single player regardless of genre or ability. Okay? There's no universal one way to do it. So if there was, I would have found it by now. All right? Because I've looked. I've purchased thousands of dollars worth of courses over, the past 20 some years, right? I've done a lot of research into how to get better at guitar and how to learn guitar. And what I have found is that there is no one way. There's only the way that works best for you. And a lot of times, you're not going to know what that is right away. Trial and error is a very, very important part about learning guitar, okay? So just know that, all right? No, there's no one way. There's no best way. And a lot of things with guitar, there's no correct order, right? Some things there is. Like in my opinion, learning music theory, I believe there is a correct order in learning music theory so that you can understand it in the shortest period of time, and so that you can, so that it all makes sense. It's all laid out in a logical, it's like step-by-step fashion, okay? I believe learning music theory is something that I think there is a logical order to. But in terms of just general, like how do I go from not knowing how to play the guitar at all to being able to play practically any song that you want to, right? There's no one way to go from nothing to being able to do that. There's not one. There's not one way to do it. There's multiple. And that's why I believe that you should study from multiple teachers over the course of your journey, because not one person can teach you everything, okay? I can't teach you everything. There's no way. I don't know everything, all right? I know what I'm very, very good at, and I know how to explain things to specific types of people that are looking to do specific types of things. But there's no teacher that can teach you absolutely everything, right? There's teachers that you like the most, or maybe they have a limited skill set in terms of how much they could show you, but they're fun to be around, that you enjoy learning from them, right? I know I've had that many, many times where I've stuck around with teachers, not necessarily because I was learning, the most that I possibly could. It's because I enjoyed the learning process, all right? And that's a big thing too, right? This is a journey. This is not something that you knock out in a weekend. You know what I mean? Like, if there's one problem that I have with any sort of music instruction marketing, it's the time frame shit, right? The master guitar in 30 days. Play this in 2 weeks, 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, over 3 months, you're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because it's not true. It's not true for everyone. Some people, yeah, all right, some people you will put that amount of time in and you'll get you'll get that result at the specified, desired time. Some people will. In my opinion, most won't. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because this isn't something that you just do once and that's it. Like, it's something it's a continuous process, right? It's a journey. It's a fucking journey. It's not something you wing it and, you half-ass it, right? It's not something that should be half-assed, right? And that's regardless of what your goals are. I'm not talking to people that are just to people that have aspirations of being, very high-level players. If you're just what I call an adult hobbyist, you just want to play for fun, right? Like, that's a journey too, okay? You're not going to just take 4 lessons from anybody and they're going to show you the holy grail of how to do whatever and you got it. Like, no, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's a journey, right? And you're missing the point of why you want to play music to begin with, right? So here's what I believe, right? Let me get some coffee in me here first before I go off on another rant. So here's what I believe is true regardless from a skill level or stylistic preference. Most people, most beginners, most intermediates, even some advanced players especially ones that are struggling, I feel like a lot of people miss what the name of the game is with learning to play a musical instrument and to get better at it, right? Like, we want to play songs. So the goal is to play music. The goal is to play music, and we achieve that through either playing our favorite songs, writing our own songs, or doing some form of improvisation. That's playing music, okay? Now, that's not necessarily like the goal in terms of what's happening in your head while you're doing that, right? This is where I think a lot of people just miss this. The name of the game, of what you're trying to do when you practice and what you're doing when you're playing, right? You have to work towards effortlessly playing the music that is in your head, all right? That's the game that has to be played. Playing music that is in your head, right? We're doing that through playing our favorite songs, we're doing that through writing songs, we're doing it through improvising, right? But you have to understand like what I really mean by this difference between like playing, I was saying playing a song and effortlessly playing what is in your head, all right? And if there's any secret, right? If there's any secret, there's no secrets. There's just things that haven't been put, into concrete terms or haven't been hit home for the individual yet, right? There's nothing that's under lock and key. But if there's anything that I would deem a secret is what are you thinking about when you are playing or when you're practicing, okay? So like when I say you're playing playing a song, if that's what you're thinking about when you're playing the song, you're thinking about I'm trying to play the song and this is the verse and this is the chorus and I go to the 12th fret here and I play the E string there and the rhythm goes like this. If that's what's going on in your head when you're playing, right, chances are you're struggling in some way, shape, or form with your ability, right? Chances are. If that's what you're thinking about, if you're thinking about where your hands have to go, if you're thinking about mechanical movements, right? If that's where your thoughts are all of the time, there's a time when you need to be thinking about that is when you're practicing your technique. But when you're playing, right? If you're playing a song or performing a song, right? And your thoughts are just consumed with what you have to do and what you need to do, you're kind of skipping a step, which you'll see that'll be made a little more clear the more I talk here, okay? But it starts with what's in your head, right? The goal is to be able to hear music in your head and output that on your instrument in a stream of consciousness, effortless way, right? It just you think of what it is you want to play and then you play it, all right? That is the skill that needs to be developed, right? That's the goal, right? It's a skill and it's a goal, right? It's both, right? That's what you're working towards. It's not something that I just say that and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll start thinking about music now. No, you have to work on that. You have to develop that, okay? But again, I've seen it over and over and over again, and I'm guilty of this myself, is I see students that have like the motor skills down, right? They can move their fingers, they could change between chords, they could strum, right? Like they have all the stuff, but every time they go to play, it's jagged, it's broken, it feels awkward, right? There's just so much like tension in their arms when they're playing, tension in their body when they're playing, and it's obvious to me what's happening. What's obvious is when they're trying to go from chord to chord, there's all sorts of thoughts happening about how to achieve that, right? All the time, right? Like, again, when you are learning chords for the first time, you have to think about where do you put your fingers because you don't know it yet. But once you're at a level where change could happen, you need to start practicing and thinking about what do I want this to sound like? What is the intent of what I'm doing? What does it sound like in my head? And in my experience, most people have a low musical IQ. They don't know. They're not thinking about music, right? If you want to see an example of what the hell I'm talking about, go on YouTube, look up live versions of Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Right after the first chorus and at the end of the song, David Gilmour does a little solo, and it's improvised each time. It's the same musical ideas are there, but he takes, little liberties and improvises a little bit with how he plays it on a performance by performance basis. But when he does it, when he plays his solo, at the same time that he's playing, he's singing, right? He's singing the melody of what he's playing at the same time that he plays it, right? Ba 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 ba, whatever the hell he's playing, right? That nonsense that I just spouted out, right? Bow 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 bow, like something like that is happening in his head, and he's just executing it, right? I'm of the opinion that the players that we look at that are special, right? That are really good. If you look at any really good player, that when they're playing, it just looks effortless, right? When you ask yourself, what is he thinking about when he does that, right? Is he thinking of all this technique things that he needs to do? No, he's just playing. He's hearing in his head what he wants to play, he or she, and it's just being executed, okay? Again, check out just David Gilmour, just any Pink Floyd live video of Wish You Were Here. After the first chorus, and then also at the end of the song, he does a little solo improv where he sings and he plays at the same time. And it's a great example of what I'm talking about because that needs to be practiced. You need to be able to hear what it is you're about to do, okay? So this moves on to this next thing I have here wrote down in my little outline about what should you do, right? What should people work on? And it's different for everybody. Not only is there no one best way to learn the guitar, there's no one practice routine. There's not one thing, there's not one exercise that you do that solves everybody's problem, right? It's so personal because there's so many factors that go into it. But in my opinion, every guitar player should be doing the following, right? They should be working on what I call their 4 core skills. So there's 4 what I've deemed core skills, and that is ear training, music theory, fretboard visualization, and technique. Those are very broad, general categories, right? There's a lot that goes into ear training. There's a lot that goes into music theory. There's a million different ways to visualize things on the fretboard, and there's a bajillion of different techniques, okay? But you need to develop those 4 skills evenly. Picture like if you were creating like a character in a video game, right? Like I know I play EA Sports UFC 3 all the time, right? So I create my fighters and I have to give them attributes. Well, what are they good? Are they good in boxing? Are they good in grappling? How's their jiu-jitsu? What moves do they want? Or you have to assign, attributes to the character, to the fighter. right? Well, think of it like that. Like you are the character and you have to get good at those 4 skills, right? Why? Because it makes learning the guitar easier and it's a shortcut in progress, right? You need to see how things are connected to each other. If you just learn songs, right? If you only do that, which you can get good. Like, listen, I started off, I didn't learn any exercises or drills. I started off with just learning songs. Just learning songs. And I know many people that started off with just learning songs. And you can get to a very respectable degree of ability by just learning songs. You absolutely can. But that's not the most efficient way to do it, right? Because if you understand and you get better at each of those 4 categories, it makes learning songs easier, right? It makes writing songs, you write better songs. It makes improvising better too, right? Because you know more things, right? Like think of it like back to fighting, right? Not video game fighting, Mom, but like if you are a real MMA fighter, right? Or a boxer, or hell, any professional athlete for that matter, when I think about it, like the name of their game is to play the game or to fight, right? So for an MMA fighter, like you do all the work so that you can get in the octagon and you could fight and you can win. But what is the work that goes into that, right? They don't just spar all the time, right? NFL teams don't just scrimmage all day long. They have to work on individual skills in order to play the game better, right? In order to play the game better, in order to get better at the game. There's individual things that just need to be worked on so that it makes the game better for you and it's more fun. And so you're better at it, so you can do more things, right? So if you only learn songs, yeah, you definitely can get better, but you're limiting yourself, right? So ear training, music theory, fretboard visualization, technique, 4 core skills, which I'll probably end up doing podcasts on each of those 4 because I could talk about each one of them at length in terms of all the things that you could do, right? Again, this episode, I'm just trying to go with a general overview of what I'm talking about, right? What I believe in, what I believe everybody should be working on, right? And you could just take this information and start researching how to learn ear training and how to learn music theory, what is fretboard visualization, what the hell am I talking about with that? So to get the most enjoyment out of playing guitar and to make faster progress, right? Remember this. You have to hear it, right? You have to hear it in your head. You have to understand it. You have to see where it's played, and then you have to execute it without thought or effort, all right? Ear training. You have to hear it, right? If you have an issue with being able to match pitch, or if you have an issue with clapping your hands in time, right? If you have an issue with something being played and you can't make sense of how the melody went or how the rhythm went, right? That's ear training. You need to develop those skills. Those are very, very important skills. The goal, again, is to play music that's in your head effortlessly, right? Well, if a lot of students have a hard time just hearing it, I see it all the time, that the biggest problem isn't how you hold the pick, or it's how you strum, or it's my fingers are too fat, my fingers are too short, none of that bullshit. The problem oftentimes comes down to how are you hearing this? How are you interpreting what it is that you're trying to play, right? So this is what I'll do a lot of times with students when I show them, before I even show them a riff anymore, right? Because I'm getting really better at this over the past few years since I realized, oh shit, the problem isn't technical, it's a mental thing, it's an ear thing. So now when I'm showing a student like a riff, right? Or like they're learning a new song, and here's the section of the song, here's the intro or the verse or whatever. Instead of just jumping right into, okay, here's how you play it, I like to start off with, here's how the riff sounds. Hum it back to me. And then I want to listen. Is that right? Is what they hear in their head what they're trying to attempt to play? Because if there's a disconnect there, how the hell are you ever going to be able to play it? Right? It starts with hear, right? You have to be able to hear what it is that you're doing. And this is something that I personally struggled with the most. I didn't even know it was a problem that I had. I had no idea that my ear was as bad as it was. I really can't fucking believe that I was able to play a lot of the things that I could play, like when I was in my early 20s, when my ear was as bad as it was. I bet you if I listen back to some of the stuff that I recorded back then, I'm no doubt be like, oh yeah, well it's pretty obvious that your ear is bad. But you have to hear it. You have to be able to hear it. Again, if you don't have the music in your head, you have to put it there. You have to understand it. You have to be able to differentiate and understand why, you know, where things are misinterpreted, right? This is why you should slow things down, right? When you're trying to learn something, and if you can't hear it at the speed that it's played at or performed at, right? There's plenty of technology these days to slow an audio file down. Slow it down, loop it, get it in your ear before you start trying to learn it. Because, again, the goal is to play what's in your head. That's the fucking goal, okay? So, ear training, you have to hear it, all right? Music theory, you have to understand it. Because ba-ba-da-boo-ba-ba-da-ba, right? Whatever the melody is, however we speak, I know a lot of my friends, when we're communicating with each other musically, we're not talking in music theory terms, right? We're talking and just play the riff, ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, whatever. Just making nonsense noises with our mouths in order to communicate. This is what it is, right? But if you understand music theory and you're talking with other people that understand music theory, you're way easier to communicate with. Way easier to communicate with. A lot of people think music theory is rules, that you have to learn the rules of music and then you have to do everything by the fucking... It's not rules. It's just explanations, right? These two sounds. This sound and that sound. What ba, ba, what is that, right? How do we name that? How do we identify what that was, right? When you do a rhythm, right? How can I identify that rhythm? How can I put some sort of definition to it, right? You have to understand it. Now, you can kind of get away with not being able to understand it. I know many people, many players that are insanely skilled that don't know shit about music theory. So it's not a requisite, but I'm telling them and I'm telling everybody, if you understand music theory, then you're going to increase your potential. If you don't understand music theory, you're limiting your potential for sure. And when you understand it, you become easier to communicate with. Like, especially in this day and age when fucking YouTube is so awesome with the amount of great players and teachers and musicians that are out there giving away their best stuff for free. Rick Beato is a perfect example of that. That dude is a genius. He's a genius, right? And while he does have a lot of instructional things on music theory on his channel, I don't want to knock him for that. But sometimes, like when you're watching some of the advanced stuff, if you don't know basic terminology, right? You don't know basic terminology, you're going to be lost with listening to anything that he explains. But if you do know the terminology, dude, it's a treasure trove of musical greatness. Like, the dude is he's a musical genius. He's a savant. I don't know what he is. Well, he's awesome. My favorite YouTuber to watch by far, Rick Beato. Check him out. Rick Beato is everything music. But so hearing it, ear training, you got to have it in your head. Music theory, you have to understand it. You have to be able to interpret the sound into a definition or a means of explaining something, or having something be explained to you without. We want to level the playing field. That's the idea. Okay. And then with fretboard visualization, you need to see where that sound is on the neck, okay? Because you could hear it. You hear it. All right, cool. I hear it. I understand it. Oh, that's a minor third. That's what a minor third sounds like. And then, oh, here is where I find the minor third on the guitar, right? Just that alone, it's like, oh, like sound in my head. I know what that sound is, and this is where I find that sound on the guitar. The more you get in the habit of that, holy shit, it's a game changer, man. It's a huge game changer. And then the last one is technique. You have to be able to execute it without thought or effort. This is where the repetition of practicing comes in, right? Working on technique, doesn't matter what the technique is, whether it's bending strings, string skipping, sweep picking, whatever the hell it is, right? all working on technique is problem solving. There's a sound that we want to recreate. We hear it. We understand what it is we're trying to do. We see where it is on the guitar. Okay, this is where I do that arpeggio. All right? And then the technique is solving the problem of executing it how we hear it via adjustments to our fretting hand or to our picking hand, right? You have to be able to problem solve in order to improve your technique. And then you just need the repetitions in. You need to do it repeatedly over and over again until it's burned into your muscle memory so that when you have the musical thought, you execute it seamlessly. It's just you're thinking of the music and oh, there it is. That's how I play it, okay? That's the idea. And then the last part of it, to bring the cycle back home, is with the ear training. Like, so you hear it, ear training, right? You have to hear it. Music theory, you understand it. Fretboard visualization, tongue twister. You see where that is on the guitar. Technique, you learn how to execute it. You repeat it until it's effortless. And then back to ear training, you listen to what you did to judge, hey, did I do that right? Was there an adjustment that needs to be made? Did I execute it the way I intended to do it, right? If you could approach everything, whether it's learning a song, learning a scale, exercises, whatever it is, if you do that stuff in that order, right? Learning a riff, okay? How does the riff go? What does the riff sound like, okay? Music theory, what key is it in? What kind of rhythm is being played? What sort of dynamics, is there palm muting happening? Whatever, right? Understand what the sound is that you're trying to play. Visualize on the fretboard, where do I do that stuff? Technique, execute it. How do I play what I hear the way I hear it? And then use your ear to judge your technique, right? Dude, you do that with shit, and you're gonna be amazed, right? But with that being said, like there are individual ear training drills that you could do just to get better at ear training. And just like with fighting, like an MMA fighter is gonna take a jiu-jitsu class. He's gonna learn how to wrestle. He's gonna learn how to box. He's gonna learn how to kickbox. So it's the same thing with guitar. You have to do individual ear training drills. You should learn music theory. You have to do different ways of visualizing the fretboard via learning scales and arpeggios. And music theory and fretboard visualization should be tied hand in hand, right? As you understand it, you should see where it is on the fretboard. So you could kind of get away with, saying that those two skills are one and the same. That argument definitely could be made for that. The only thing is with guitar, there's so many different ways of visualizing stuff, like a major scale. You can play a major scale a whole bunch of different ways. You can play it on one string. You can play it with 3 notes per string. You could do it in essentially what's called the cage system, where you're doing a combination of 2 notes and 3 notes per string. Whatever, right? However you need to visualize it in order to do what you got to do, right? You're just taking the sound to the theory and finding where it is, right? And there's obviously individual technique things that you could do too. So they're all very, very important, okay? So while you want to build up your individual skills and work on things that, build up your ear training, work on things that build up your music theory, et cetera, et cetera. You also need to work on playing music. It's something that needs to be practiced as well. And again, it's dependent on what, what your goals are as a student, where you're at in your journey, what's interesting to you right now. There's no one-size-fits-all way, right? But if you just in general, right? If you have something that you're working on where you have something that you're working on to build your ear, you have something that you're working on to build your music theory skills, you have something to work on to build your fretboard visualization, you have something to work on to build your technique. On top of that, you need to be either learning your favorite songs, you need to be working on writing your own songs, or you need to be improvising, right? One of those 3 or all 3. Like, I know I'm interested in all 3. I want to be able to play the shit that I want to play, that I like. I love to write music. I love to record music. And improvising is one of my all-time favorite things to do ever. So I do a little bit of all of that, okay? But you have to practice playing too, okay? Because back to what I said, what's the name of the game? Play what's in your head, right? Well, if you've never done that before, if you've been playing guitar for a while and all you do is think about technique when you play, you need to go back over the songs that you already know, and you need to practice them with not changing how you play it, but changing about what you're thinking about when you're playing it. Making that adjustment. And if I could recommend a book, The Inner Game of Music, this is where I essentially learned this idea from. Play what's in your head. Inner Game of Music, great book. And especially if you have any, if you perform at all, or if you have aspirations to perform at all. Stage fright and, having somebody else watch you as you play, nerves are a big factor. And you could practice something a million times, and then as soon as you get in front of somebody else that's watching you, it could all go to shit. It could all go to shit really, really quick. So having mechanisms to prepare you for that are important. And the best one by far is to practice where you're concentrating on just playing the music. You're not thinking about bullshit. You're not thinking about technique. You're not thinking about whatever. You're not letting your thoughts wander. You're just thinking about, I'm hearing music and I'm playing it, right? That's the game. That's the game that needs to be played. This is, again, it's not a reason why I think a lot of guys and girls that are on their guitar playing journey, why they struggle is because they're never thinking about playing. I'm sorry, they're never thinking about the music that they're trying to play, right? They're thinking about technique too much. It's a constant emphasis on how they're playing stuff. But also, I've seen it with advanced musicians, especially guys that are in cover bands that play the same songs over and over again, where you do it so much and so often, and it's so ingrained. Even if you do think at one point in time, you think of the music and you play it, you do it so much, and it's so automatic that it becomes boring. Right? You've done it so many times that it becomes boring. And then, the bad, a bad gig where not a lot of people show up, and you're playing something that you played a million times, you start fucking it up. Why? Because you start thinking about other shit. You're thinking about, what am I going to do tomorrow? You're thinking about, man, this gig sucks or whatever, right? I've seen that happen a lot with really good players, and they're just playing a song they played a million times, and they're just not into it anymore. They're just not into it anymore, and their thoughts are wandering, and shit can go off the rails. And even if shit doesn't go off the rails, a lot of times they could be just unhappy with their performance. They might sound great. Like if I might hear them and be like, wow, that was really, really great. You sounded awesome. And they might go, yeah, kind of an off night. I'm willing to bet it's because you're not thinking about playing music. You're thinking about whatever, right? Whatever else. So it's an important thing. It's an important thing. So let me get some more coffee here. God, I love that coffee. So, how to implement what I'm saying? Well, again, everything depends on where you're at in your journey, right? I'm of the belief if you're brand new at playing guitar, or you're just very much in the beginner stages, you should absolutely focus more on learning songs first. Being able to play music that you like, that is the focus. When I take on new students, I don't give them any music theory really outside of learning some of the notes on the guitar. The goal is to play music, right, with beginners. So all guitar teachers out there, if you don't do that and you have a lot of beginners that start and then quit, check how you're doing that, because some players, they don't want to be high level. They don't really care. They don't care if they become a virtuoso player, or they don't care if they don't reach some sort of speed threshold, right? They just want to play. They just want to play songs for their own enjoyment, right? And when you're brand new at it, in my opinion, if you inundate somebody like that with a bunch of theory up front or a bunch of technique drills up front, right, which may be beneficial to them, it's not beneficial to everybody. So everything needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis, all right? So that's important. You have to understand where you're at in your journey, and it's personal. What you want to be upfront with, like I said, with the beginner side, I always lean towards learning songs first, learning riffs first. And I try to sneak in, technique principles and some little fretboard visualization or music theory stuff, excuse me, as I go to kind of work towards getting to what I'm talking about with these four, these four core skills and building each of them. But when you're starting out, you should go, heavier with the playing stuff versus the theory side. But then that could be turn on its head, where if you are fuck it, I want to be a really great guitar player. Like I want to be really, really good. Like that's your goal. You want to be, admired, that's a good word, or you just want to be respected for your guitar skills, right? You know that from the get-go. Well, if you're going to approach it that way, then, maybe you should start on ear training and music theory and fretboard visualization stuff right up front as you learn songs, okay? But regardless, of how you do it, okay, it's imperative, though, that you learn how to let go of certain things, okay? Because this is, again, it's a journey. This is not something you knock out in a weekend, right? So first thing is let go of how long anything takes. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Playing an instrument is beautiful, right? It's a beautiful thing. It's something that you could do for the rest of your life, all right? And it's something like you should learn to love the process. That's what it boils down to. It's not about the result. Even if you get to learn how to play how you want to play. If I could wave a magic wand and just give you what you think right now, what you think is the epitome of being a guitar player, right? And if I could just instantly download those abilities to your brain, you could immediately do it. I'm willing to bet that you still won't be satisfied. I know I wouldn't be. Because I don't care about the result as much as I care about the process. It's about the journey. It's about doing it, right? Practicing is it's therapeutic. It's not just about getting good at guitar. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is for me. It is like this is what I do for a living, and I want to become better. But like the fact that I get to do that I have that outlet in order to put my creative side of my brain and my analytical side of my brain towards something that is fun and is something that I could do for the rest of my life, and is something that is rewarding and makes other people happy in many different ways. It's awesome, right? It's awesome. But if you only focus on the result, then you're not understanding how results come about, okay? If you just focus on getting to the goal, right? You just focus on the goal, right? Once you crush the goal, you're going to end up with, and now what? And now what do I do? Like, it's just what happens. It's just what happens. So if you learn to love the process, though, if you learn to love what it takes to get the result, if you learn how results are created, right, and you work to refine that process, you're going to get more results in abundance, and you're going to feel better about it because you're going to know why. You're going to know why you got the result to begin with, and then you can duplicate that process to achieve the next result, right? It's all about how you do things. And I don't mean that like it's this specific exercise and it's this topic and it's this thing. That changes. It changes from person to person, and it changes from week to week based on what you're interested in and what your short-term thinking is, okay? There's no universe. You don't create a practice routine that's it. That's the way I'm going to practice forever. It doesn't work like that, right? And letting go of time, letting go of how long things take, I think is extremely important because not everything is mastered in a week, right? There's a big stereotype where students come in for lessons and it's like I show them thing 1 on Monday, they go home and they practice it, and then they come back next week and then here's thing 2, right? And then thing 3 the next week, and so on and so forth. I wish to fucking Christ that was the case. I wish that was the case for everybody. It's not. There are some freaks out there that is the case for, right? I know people in particular that's like, holy shit, that guy learned really, really fast. You gave him a thing on a Monday, he had it mastered by Wednesday. That's rare. That's rare. That's not everybody. That's 99.99% of the people out there that learn guitar. They don't master everything in 1 week. Some things just take longer. And especially if you're an adult hobbyist player, if you're somebody that's just wanting to do this for fun, right? Life is going to get in the way. Like, you're going to have to take your kids to soccer, and you got this function, there's a wedding, you're drunk, you're hungover, whatever it is, right? Like, we know that you're not, while we have, all the good intentions in the world of practicing a half an hour a day, 5 days a week, we all have the intention of doing it. Shit fucking happens, and you can't do it every day. Don't let, like, this isn't going to the gym, right? Like, this isn't like you take a week off from practicing and then all of a sudden you're a fat piece of shit and you need to go back to the gym. No. Like, yeah, maybe you can't do the things that you used to do at the same level, but you don't forget everything, all right? If you take a week off, right? Like, understand that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not something you just knock out in a few lessons, okay? It's just not. It's just a reality, okay? So understand that, and then learn to love the process. Learn to love practicing. Understand that what you're doing when you're practicing is sharpening your musical ear, and you're sharpening your ability to communicate by playing music. You're speaking the language of music when you're playing. And if you learn, and you do this through practicing, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the process, through practicing, when you sharpen that skill of being able to hear something in your head and then effortlessly play it, you're going to become really addicted to it. And you're going to be amazed at how much better you get the more you do it. It's awesome. It's an awesome, awesome thing. So, and that's why learning an instrument is a great activity, right? Because everything I just said, where you're talking about the process and practicing and learning to love the process and how results happen and not the results themselves. There's a lot of things that you could do in this life that work similarly to that. Martial arts is one of them. Playing sports is one of them. Any kind of sport. Yoga. There's a lot of things that achieve the same thing, where you learn, if you learn to focus on the process, you learn how to get results instead of just focusing on the results. A lot of things that do that. Sports in particular, right? But you can't necessarily do sports your entire life. Are you going to play basketball when you're 95? Unless there's some crazy medical advances, which I think there might be eventually. But, you're not going to tear a rotator cuff playing guitar. You're not going to tear an ACL playing guitar, right? Although I did get turf toe. That's a funny thing. I got turf toe playing guitar. Working right here. Just a stupid thing. I'm up on my, I can see this from, if you're just listening, but when I play, right, sometimes when I play, I arch my foot like that. So picture these are my toes, and I just bend them back, and I was recording, and I did that for like 5-6 hours at a time, 2 days in a row, and I developed a hyperextended ligament in my foot, which is called turf toe. And I couldn't walk for like a week, man. It was brutal. It was fucking brutal. Felt like an idiot that I injured my foot playing guitar, but that is something that definitely happened, and it's a funny story. So, but my point is, with sports and things like that they're physically taxing. Guitar's not physically taxing, okay? You can play guitar for a half an hour, and you're not going to need to get a drink of water and calm down and lower your heart rate. You know what I mean? So what makes it a great activity is because if you learn how to practice, and if you learn how to enjoy the process of learning, you're going to see that, oh shit, this applies in multiple different areas of life. This is why it's important for kids to learn a musical instrument, because this is a low risk way to learn how to do things and how to get enjoyment out of hard work, and how to deal with frustration. How to take something that occurs in your head and manifest it into something tangible, okay? That connects with other people. I mean, you know how powerful that is? That's what music is. It happens in my head. I play it. You listen to it. Hopefully, it stirs some sort of emotional reaction within you, all right? Something that occurred in my head is now out there that can be received by other people and interpreted in ways that could positively affect them. If you get good at the process of that, you're gonna see that it's like, oh shit, I can use these principles of, focus on the process, not the result. I could use that in building a business. Oh, I can use that in working on my relationships. Oh, I can use that in insert thing here. Okay, that's why I say music is the fucking source, man. Because if you learn how to do it, if you learn how to love the process of doing it, it benefits multiple areas of your life. All right, I'm an hour in, so that was fun. That was great. I felt like I just got a lot off my chest. That was fantastic. So, thank you for listening. I will catch you all next time.